Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Ana Olivares, and I'm the Transportation Director for Pima County. And today we're going to follow up on the presentation that was at the last meeting that talked about funding sources. So we're just going to go into a little bit more detail about our allocated, potential, and ineligible funding sources available for road repair and preservation. At last meeting, we talked about the funding sources that come to Pima County through the state, the gas, HURF, Highway User Revenue Fund, and the VLT that makes up our HURF VLT allocation. And the diagram there on the right is what we talked about last time. So those are our allocated resources that come to us. So I've highlighted, it's hard to read, I apologize for that, but I highlighted the yellow that highlights also the yellow on the drawing. So those are our funding sources that we use for road repair and for the maintenance of all our infrastructure and the transportation. Under the potential sources, we have the regional sources that come through PAG also. That's highlighted, it comes through the gas tax HURF. We also have locally property tax and sales tax. And then the ineligible sources that we have are right-of-way impact fees and the development impact fees. I'll go into more detail for each one of those. Just so you know, for fiscal year 20, what we have budgeted for our HURF and VLT is about 51.4 million of HURF and 15 million of VLT that will come in fiscal year 20. So those are the estimates that we received from the state and from PAG. So I'll go over the allocated sources, as I mentioned. The HURF and the transportation VLT. In fiscal year 19, what we adopted was a total of 63.9 million. And so that was the HURF and the VLT. And the way the department was funded was that about 38.7 million of that is being utilized to fund the department. And that calls for all our operations and maintenance of our infrastructure. The debt service for the 97 HURF Bond program, 18.8, and our regional transit allocation for PAG, about 6.4. So that was for the fiscal year 19 we are currently in. Other potential sources that could be used for road repair come from PAG. So these are the funding sources that come through the region, mostly for capital improvement programs. They go through PAG. All the jurisdictions are part of PAG, and that money is allocated each year about how much they're estimating. And each of the jurisdictions has their projects they propose. And then we go through an iteration with our PAG committees to see how that funding will be allocated. In the past, some of that has been available for pavement road repair. Several years ago in 2009, it was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, and that was federal funding, and that was utilized by most of the jurisdictions for road repair at that time. So it has been used, but most of this is geared toward capital improvement projects. And the current PAG policy that we are under right now is to use all of the regional funding that comes through PAG to complete the RTA program of 2006. As you know, the RTA funding has not reached what it has estimated when it was passed in 2006, so they are short to meet that obligation. So the RTA policy is to have all of this funding that comes in through the region available to finish off the RTA programs. So this is not really available for road repair or anything else for that. It's not even available for new projects either. Another potential source is our local sources. So this is our property tax. And this is, as you remember, this is our general fund revenues. And as you remember, in fiscal year 18, there was a property tax that was allocated for a local road program. And it did not get renewed for another year, so we just did that for fiscal year 18. This is a general fund revenue property tax, so it's available for all the jurisdictions and everybody who pays into the property tax. So if you remember, for that program, the local road program, that money was shared with all the jurisdictions. Pima County unincorporated got about 8.9 million of that 19-point-some million that was allocated for property tax. So that program is complete, has not been renewed, but that is a potential funding source should it be approved again. Another local potential source that could be used for road repair is a sales tax. This requires a unanimous Board of Supervisor vote, and the last initiative was not moved forward for sales tax. And that is, but it is available, should it also be brought forward again to be considered. The ineligible funding sources are right-of-way impact fees. The right-of-way impact fees can only pay for the program itself. So these are fees paid by anybody who comes and wants to use the right-of-way, utilities development, any permit fees that come in. But those can only be funded to actually fund the program of managing that. It cannot exceed that cost. The other ineligible source is development impact fees. And those are restricted to regional capacity improvements that are caused by that development. They are not available for maintenance or road repair. It's only for the impact that that development is going to generate. So it can only use for capacity improvements. Currently we have 10 benefit areas, but we're in the process of updating the development impact fee ordinance. We will have a draft available this fall. Prior to that, we'll be meeting with all the stakeholders to go over what is in the ordinance for the development impact fees. I want to talk real quick about some financing instruments that we use and to really be clear that these are not additional funding sources. The bonds and the certificates of participations, they are a financing instrument. So they are used to finance improvements sooner rather than later. So the 97 bonds was a good example. It was $350 million in 1997. That was voter approved for mobility and safety projects. It was not really, at that time it was not voted for any kind of road repair. In the bond amendment ordinance itself, in the bond ordinance itself, there's a process to do amendments. And last year we did an amendment to reallocate some authority that had not been spent. And we reallocated $60 million for artillery collector repair. So that was gone through the bond amendment process. That was not what it was voted on in 97, but we did do that amendment. As you all know, in 2018, we had another bond proposal and failed at the voters. And the COPS is another financing instrument. Again, we use it to finance improvements now to be paid back later. So an example of that is the Valencia extension. That is going to be done for the Rocking Cave development. So that one will be paid back through impact fees. The COPS will be used to build the project now, and then as impact fees come in later, it'll be paid back. So these are two financing instruments. And I just want to be clear that this is not additional revenue, it's just a way to finance the revenue that we are projected to get. What we do use for road repair and preservation, as well as the rest of the maintenance of our infrastructure, is the HURF and VL team. Now, we've used that before, so we've used it from our operations budget. Whatever money we have been able to generate from after all our expenses for the rest of our infrastructure will go into road repair. And then, of course, the HURF and VLT pays back the bonds that we used for the $60 million arterial collector program that's going on fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. That's what we've used. And then fiscal year 18, we used the property tax. And that was only approved for fiscal year 18. So previously we sent to everybody some information on the, Mr. Supervisor Christie had a call to the audience at the last meeting. He asked for some information about the 60 million collector program for the bond amendment. So we sent that in the package to the TAC committee for your review. So we kind of wanted to summarize in the next couple of slides how we have distributed that HURF VLT and the funding that we use for pavement repair. So from 2015 to 2019, the last 5 years, in 2015 we budgeted 3.6 HURF, so that was part of the transportation allocation. Fiscal year 16 we didn't have any available. In fiscal year 17 we had 3.8 available. And then fiscal 18, that's 14.9 million was the total that was done, budgeted for that year, but that included the 8.9 million of the local property tax that was for fiscal year 18, and the 6 million of our own HURF that we had saved from the year before and the next year. So that was completed. Fiscal year 19, that 10 million, there's a 97 bond. What was approved was 60 million to be done in fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. So that's how we allocated the HURF and VLT. The next slide will show what we have planned for the next 5 years. So these are our planned sources for road repair and preservation. Fiscal year 20, you'll see that includes the 50 million that the Transportation Department from our HURF and VLT allocations. we are going to put forward for contract maintenance. This is the money that is for contract road repair. It's not the money that's set aside for pothole repair. That's in our other maintenance funding. This is 50 million will be set aside for contract road repair. But in fiscal year 20, we're also going to finish off the 16 million of the 97 bond reallocation. So that's what that 6 plus 15 makes our 21 total. So in 21, 22, 23, 24, you'll see what we have allocated for those years from the Department of Transportation's operational funds. Now those increases have come from the department has been going through a reorganization, finding efficiencies, reduce our costs wherever possible so that we can redirect them to our highest priority, which is road repair. So that's what we've been working on, and that's how we've been able to generate some savings from the department. The debt payments will also decrease, so you'll see the bump from fiscal year 22 to 23. That is where the decrease in debt payment comes. And PAG is also projecting slightly higher revenues. And this past year we adopted HURF, the expected HURF, but we're getting about, actually the region is getting about 4.4 million Pima County than they had anticipated. So that's being saved, being transferred over to make up the 15 million. And this graph just kind of summarizes the last two slides. We wanted to put it in a graphical form to show you. So it's 2015 through 2024. The HURF ELT is in yellow. The green is our local property tax that was completed. And the purple is the 97 bond that shows a 10 million in 19 and the 6 million in 20. Now, the planned yellow is our planned HURF ELT. We just kind of have a hatch mark because that is our estimates. We don't know for sure until we get our actual numbers from PAG for those amounts. And then the blue hatch there is a UN's proposal for general fund. If you've seen that memorandum, we've also sent that to the TACT for review. That is a proposal being considered right now to use general fund for regional arterials and recreational arterials. We have that in blue. It's a proposal, so it has not been approved. It's still under discussion. But we just have it in there, so in case. And for this purposes, we have estimated 10 million. We do not know exactly what it will be, but we wanted to put it on the graph. And for this graph only, we put in 10 million. We will know the actual number until actually the proposal gets considered and approved. So the regional priorities, so that was based on identifying regional priorities, roadways that are used by incorporated municipalities, roadways that are used. So we did an estimated analysis. If 40% of the motorists coming out from the incorporated areas using unincorporated roadways, wherever there was 40% or more, we identified those roads as potential regional arterials that could be used. And the recreational arterials were just roads that led to destinations that are recreational. Gates Pass, Mount Lemons, Colossal Cave Road, the amenities that we have, the Desert Museum that we have all over Pima County. That's how those roadways were identified. And there is a map that shows that right now. So this is our proposal being considered. We will not know until budget discussion happens. And that is our discussion on the funding. Does anybody have any questions?